Okay, so with no further ado, I'm going to leave you with Nicoletta, who's going to be explaining this while you all join. Okay? Off to you,
Buonasera a
Nicoletta.
tutti e benvenuti a questo corso di formazione docenti online. Io sono Nicoletta e vi parlo dai nostri uffici di Napoli, MLA di Napoli. Dedicheremo giusto qualche minuto a presentare la nostra grande offerta, la nostra vasta offerta, perché come ben sapete MLA è un tour operator leader nel settore delle vacanze studio, ma anche nei corsi di lingua inglese. Lavoriamo infatti nel settore delle vacanze studio da moltissimi anni, oltre 45 anni, e siamo in grado di offrire numerosi vantaggi dal momento che siamo anche accreditati dal MIM, quindi ex-MIUR. Tra i nostri servizi, il nostro plus ovviamente principale sono le nostre vacanze studio. Si tratta infatti, come potete vedere dalla nostra overview, Ruth, if you,
Yes.
yeah, okay. Dalla nostra overview numerose sono le nostre destinazioni, infatti è possibile scegliere vacanze studio sia in Scozia, sia in Inghilterra, ma anche in America, Stati Uniti, Canada e Spagna. Tutti i nostri pacchetti sono ovviamente personalizzabili, è possibile scegliere vacanze studio di 8 giorni, 10, 14 o 15, eventualmente anche con l'aggiunta di un mini break, come nel caso di Galway con mini break a Dublino. In particolar modo, in questo periodo è stato pubblicato il catalogo anteprima, per cui numerosi sono i vantaggi offerti, come il corso prepartenza di 8 mesi gratuito, quindi completamente in omaggio, la MLA, la garanzia assicurativa zero pensieri con un piccolo costo di 100 euro, la garanzia salvacconto e la garanzia prezzo più basso. Un altro dei nostri vasti programmi è il programma dedicato agli stage linguistici. Ruth, if you... Ok, perfect. Gli stage linguistici, dunque, come è possibile vedere dall'overview, numerose sono le destinazioni e anche le durate. Si tratta infatti di veri e propri programmi ad hoc, quindi personalizzati per le scuole, quindi molto importanti anche per voi docenti. I nostri plus che riguardano appunto gli stage sono la collaborazione con scuole altamente qualificate, la possibilità di inserire anche corsi PCTO in alternativa al corso di lingua, famiglie altamente selezionate, quindi direttamente da noi, programmi esclusivi e anche la possibilità di essere inseriti in progetti PON o POR e l'assistenza MLA in loco per quanto riguarda il programma Stage Plus. Un altro nostro importante programma è il programma High School Abroad, per cui si tratta di veri e propri periodi di studio, anche qui personalizzabili per ragazzi di secondo, terzo e quarto superiore. Come potete vedere dalla nostra overview, Ruth, please, ok, thank you. Dalla nostra overview, anche qui molte sono le destinazioni, non solo anglofone, infatti è possibile vedere anche Svezia e Spagna. Prenotando entro il 20 di dicembre sono numerosi i vantaggi per quanto riguarda il programma High School Abroad. So Ruth, please, if you're gonna, ok. Se si prenota entro il 20 di dicembre c'è un corso di lingua online di ben 5 mesi gratuito, valido ovviamente solo per prenotazioni entro il 20 dicembre del 2023. Numerosi sono anche i nostri vantaggi esclusivi, quindi il corso prepartenza di 5 mesi incluso per Stati Uniti, Canada, Australia, Nuova Zelanda, Regno Unito e Irlanda. Uno sconto in moneta fino a 200 euro e la garanzia Zero Pensieri Plus con uno sconto fino a 150 euro. Ultimo programma, ma non il meno importante ovviamente, è il programma Language Live, quindi le nostre scuole di lingua online. Scuole che permettono appunto di apprendere la lingua inglese, ma non solo, anche tedesca e spagnola, grazie ai nostri docenti altamente qualificati e certificati CELTA. Per cui sono corsi economici, flessibili e usufruibili direttamente da casa. I vantaggi dei nostri corsi di lingua online presentano la collaborazione con insegnanti madrelingua, quindi altamente qualificati, super sicuri ed affidabili, economici e anche flessibili, quindi di conseguenza c'è un risparmio sia di tempo che di denaro, ma anche con progressi sicuramente garantiti e la possibilità di ottenere anche famose certificazioni di cui tutti noi siamo appunto a conoscenza. Lascio ora la parola alla mia collega Ruth che vi esemplificherà in maniera più dettagliata possibile i nostri corsi di formazione online. Vi ringrazio, lascio la parola a Ruth.
Thank you very much, Nicoletta. Thank you for your collaboration. So we're going to start with our teacher training course. So, okay, let's see if we have any questions for you. Can they be paid by carta del docente? That's a question for you, Nicoletta.
Just give me a sec. Silvia, can they be paid by carta del docente? Okay, just give me a sec. Allora, Silvia, no, non è possibile per il pagamento dei nostri corsi utilizzare la carta del docente. Ok, Ruth, I think that you're gonna start.
Yes, I'm starting. Thank you, Nicoletta. So, welcome everybody. Here we are again in our teacher refresher course. Today we're going to be talking about interaction patterns. Let's see if this works. Okay, as usual, you will receive a certificate of participation in this webinar in the next few days. If you do not receive it, please email us to formazione@mlaworld.com. We will give you a handout that will contain all the important information from this webinar, plus useful links and any worksheets that we will be showing. Okay. So as an introduction, we all know that using a variety of interaction patterns, seating arrangements, groupings of students will help learners to enhance different skills collaboratively. Okay, so now monitoring group work and pair work in a monolingual class can be challenging. What do you think? Is it challenging? What challenges do you know? Do you find most common when doing group work or pair work with students? And is it worth the effort? Why do we want to do group work and pair work in our classes? Please keep them coming in the chat. I would love to have your ideas. We don't have Josh here today, and I am on my own doing this. I mean, Nicoletta, I don't think you want to stay for the whole, are you going to stay for the whole presentation?
I don't think, Ruth, but just for 10 minutes maybe.
Fabulous. Okay. So please keep your ideas coming because that will really help me interact with you today. It is always worth it, to my mind, to make students interact. I think that's the key, isn't it, Sylvia and Sonia? Definitely. I think there are loads of benefits of group work and pair work. So let's move on a little bit. The objectives today, so we hope that by the end of this session, you will be better able to understand the challenges and the best methods of monitoring group and pair work, to use different techniques to maximize student talking time, which is something that you said just before. It's group work and pair work is basically to encourage students to interact in English. And then we can exploit other benefits of peer-to-peer interaction patterns. Now, what are the main interaction patterns? Milena, I absolutely agree. Students feel more confident and they can work with their classmates. It is very true. We'll look at it in a minute. So these are the interaction patterns. Very simple. Teacher to student, student to teacher, students to teacher, because it could be in singular or plural, or student to student. So basically, we know that if the students are talking to other students, we are maximizing their student talking time, okay? So, of course, depending on the stage of the lesson, the interaction between the teacher and the students, as well as the student to other students, is crucial for language learning. It's not only about them talking together, we do need to talk to them as well, and they need to be able to talk to us. But as English as a foreign language teachers, I think it is a good idea to observe how different patterns of communication change the class dynamics, okay? And then we can take advantage of it and make the most of our lesson. When we vary these interaction patterns, depending on the class, it helps us teach all the materials effectively. So sometimes we will need to talk to our students to give instructions, which is teacher to student interaction pattern. We use that for correction. We will explore different ways we use that particular interaction pattern. But I think the key here is a good variety of it. Let's not stick to group work always, pair work always, or teacher to students always. I think it is a matter of choosing wisely what we're going to use. And let me check the chat. Yes, very well pointed out, Sylvia. When they talk to each other, they tend to do it in Italian, and we're going to look at ways we can prevent that from happening, because it's important that when they do it in English. So that's why it's difficult to monitor. That's one of the main challenges. I absolutely agree. Okay, so some of the interaction patterns are teacher-centered and others are student-centered. So it is important for us to know which one is what, basically because that's how we can use them to meet the aims in the different stages of a lesson, okay? So, so basically when patterns are teacher-centered, that means that we as teachers control what's happening in the classroom. And then when the patterns are student-centered, then the students are in control of the classroom. It gives them freer practice with the language. There are lots of benefits to this. It is true that it's a challenge, but that means that they get involved in their own learning process and they tend to remember, which is the one thing we want when we are teachers. So we teach a subject. We teach, for example, vocabulary. And we could be very efficient at teaching, but what we want really is our students to remember. So when we actually put the focus on them and they're the ones involved in the learning process, that's when they are most likely to remember because they've been using it for a purpose, they've been trying themselves and they've been placing kind of the rules themselves, setting the pace of the lesson themselves. However, when you're doing error correction, for example, of course, that stage will be teacher-centered or when you're giving instructions. So again, it's a matter of choosing wisely. Group and pair work are student-centered because they basically is focused on students. And open class activities, when the full class is interacting with the teacher, that could be either student-centered or teacher-centered, okay? It allows for different communication patterns, not only you and the students or the students to you, you can also monitor conversation among the students in an open class. Now, full class interaction, I think this is quite challenging. What do you think are the advantages of full class interaction? Give us some ideas on the chat. What is full class, open class interaction good for in the EFL class? I'm going to give you one just to get you started. Good. I don't even have to start. Fostering empathy, definitely. Building rapport with your students. That is very important. Promoting critical thinking, asking the right questions. True, Sylvia, although I'm very likely to do that when they're working in pairs as well, more as in a full class. But I agree, you can do that. That is top priority. General brainstorming, fantastic. Entertainment, fabulous, true. We're also entertainers. Everyone can express their opinions anonymously, very good. Making friends. That's interesting as well. I think, yeah, first lesson, first year pupils, yes. Developing soft skills because they're interacting with each other. However, let's recap a bit and think, is this going to be better developed in small groups? Depending on the age, or in a full class. I mean, this is what I collected, and in my experience, it is a good way to start and end a lesson. Basically, because you need to do that brainstorming, you were talking about engaging activities, you need to talk to the full class at the beginning and to finish as well. So for error correction, I mean, you collect your students' mistakes, you collect your students' good language, and then instead of pointing at specific students, then you actually do it as a whole class and they can all benefit from each other's corrections. And okay, bye-bye, Nicoletta. It's been lovely to have you.
Bye, 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 everyone.
Bye. Now, as an alternative formative assessment method, so instead of assessing individual students, you assess how good the class is at implementing your target language. You can do that at the end of the lesson as well. As we said, at the beginning and at the end. So the whole class feedback at the end gives cohesion. It's like, okay, everybody has something to say about what we've just been doing in groups or pairs. So I think it's always great to start as a full class and to finish as a full class. However, I think it could be a little bit time consuming sometimes because the students are not all of them are working. They spend a lot of time waiting. So for me, that's one of the drawbacks. And it's very teacher-led. You're in control. You're the one setting the rules instead of them talking and setting the pace and taking ownership. The whole class grouping favors the group rather than the individual. So it's more about how the group interacts together. And it's brilliant, but then we want to pay attention to individual corners. And that's one of the advantages of pair work and group work. Implementing activities that involve the entire class helps definitely build teacher and student rapport and a sense of belonging. You mentioned this before. Also, okay, these presentations sometimes, okay, now. But it is important to make it student-centered. So some of the activities that we can use in open class to make this happen is class debates. Okay, we moderators there. Discussions, which is essentially the same thing, but with a little bit less persuasion. And review games, where we review and we set up a game. It's a whole class, and they are in charge of it, okay? But what are the challenges of full class interaction to make it student-centered? I think it's very difficult to monitor. Maybe it's because I've been doing group work and pair work to enhance student talking time so much, but I think full class is a little bit more challenging for me. And I think it's because it requires experience. Once we have a few years of teaching on our backs, it's a little bit easier to facilitate communication among students. I don't know if you've been in this situation, but I've got, for example, Antonella, one of my students, I asked them, so what is the best option that you found for an excursion as a group? And then Antonella says something, and then I ask another student to contribute. And generally they ask me to say what Antonella said. So I would have to, what did she say? So then all communication goes via the teacher. So promoting like, sorry, do you want to ask her? Promoting that interaction in a full class environment is difficult because we generally feel in charge. So we basically repeat everything our students say. Yes, Kahoot is a good one, definitely. One of those review games, they love Kahoots as well. And then deal with domineering students and ensure a fair discussion with maximum participation. Then we have to be there and stop those ones that talk a lot and try and incorporate the quiet corners in a full class interaction. So I think this is a little bit more challenging. And for me, the most important thing is that there is a lot of waiting around. And what I want from my students in class is to be able to participate and speak as much as possible. So advantages of group and pair work. Absolutely, Sylvia. That's exactly what I was talking about. Weakest students tend not to, share openly in class. So this is why group and pair work is better, especially for teenagers. I don't know if you teach teenagers. I love teenagers, but they sometimes feel a little bit daunted by speaking in open class. They don't want to be in the spotlight. So they feel happier when they talk to one another and, more confident, and there's more coming from them. In large classes, depending on the number of students you have, they may often feel anonymous So when they're in a small group, they have a chance to show how much they do, how much they can contribute. Because otherwise it's just going to fall flat. There are only 4 people together. So they do need to talk and they have a chance to shine. This is very important as well. Students can teach each other, which is great for consolidation. Students who know a lot, when they have to transfer that knowledge, that's when they consolidate how much they know, how good they know it, and how able they are to communicate it. It encourages cooperation and teamwork skills, and someone mentioned critical thinking before. I think there are skills that we need to train these days. They're very important skills. They're necessary for our work life, and they're necessary for our university life as well. And then they learn to lead and to be led. It's because they take different roles. We can assign those specific roles in the group as well in order to train them. Group work provides a natural linguistic environment. This is very important because when students are engaged in a natural conversation they care about, that's when the learning happens. They get an opportunity to work independently. And when they are independent, especially teenagers, they're more motivated. They concentrate on the task. It's their task. It's not you, the teacher, who's telling them what to do all the time. And that independence is something they seek, they want, they look for. Again, same, we already talked about this. Imagine if you have 10 students and 20 minutes class, they only get 2 minutes. If you divide it evenly, here they will get more student talking time. And there's a better chance for self-correction and peer correction. They can help each other correct, and they can actually correct themselves, because they have a different pace. Nobody's waiting for them. This is very important. So it takes a spotlight off you. It's not teacher-centered. It changes the pace of the lesson. You're going to have to adapt a little bit. So, the students will actually tell you where they're at. You can help them, you cannot. So they are in charge of the pace as well. Teacher assistants, very good. They do. And we're going to look at that because I think that's very important to stop them speaking in Italian. So if you group them differently each time, which is something we're going to look at as well, it allows them to mix with everyone in the group, which is an opportunity for them as well. And then I think it's easier to finish a task as a group than it is to finish it alone. So basically, it just gives you a sense of achievement because you will always reach a goal. And this is very important. What do we want? I believe in the role of a teacher as an organizer, as a planner. We plan, we set up the different activities for students to work. In class, students work. We take a step back. We monitor, we listen to the language, we take notes, and then we know what to do with it. So it gives you the chance to do that. Now, group work versus pair work. We're going to favor group work here for various reasons. I am a big fan of pair work, but I think they're easier to monitor. And what I'm trying to do here is to give you some tips that have been useful for me and other colleagues in order to monitor efficiently and set up the tasks efficiently. So group work, you have more opinions, more discussion. So that means, it flows a little bit better. In pairs, you have 2 opinions. If they agree, sometimes it falls flat. When there are more people, they solve the task successfully. In pairs, sometimes they struggle. Then, if you have 2 students who don't like working together, if you put them in a group, then, those personal relationships are less likely to interfere in the learning process of the group. Negotiation, cooperation skills, more. They will push for things differently. They'll have different ways to interact. So that gives them different skills. Pair work is harder to monitor. I don't believe so. I think that sometimes it is. But it is true that if you have a large class, it will be harder to monitor because you going and monitoring all the pairs is going to be much more difficult. They're going to be constantly asking you for help. And I think that some of you have quite numerous classes. So group work is going to cut down on that monitoring. And pair work is better for controlled practice. So gut feel activity, quick icebreaker, exam practice, pairs, fast and efficient. I love pair work for that. Now, advantages of pair and group work. Challenges, sorry. So what's difficult? You mentioned a few. Do you have any more ideas? What do you find difficult when monitoring, when setting up, pair and group work? What is the challenge here? I think that there is a common belief that it's always best to talk to the teacher. And it's not actually true. Because we are teachers, we care about our students. I mean, I always help them. And sometimes a peer, it doesn't help. They are actually waiting patiently for the other to communicate. And I think that's great for them. And then, they don't always have the person who has the best English. They have different abilities, different skills. They will come across people who are better and people who are worse than them. It's not talking to the teacher, and that's we lose when they're actually talking to the teacher only. Thank you. So that common belief, we need to step away from it, and we're going to talk about how to do this. I think it's good to communicate to our students. A whole class may discourage students from participation. Risk of failure. We said this again. The role of the teacher shifts from controller to organizers and resource, and this is challenging sometimes because, especially with teenagers and kids, you want to be in charge because sometimes they can be very disruptive. I felt in that position as well. But when you're an organizer, if you organize and plan, it does work. And then you can take a step back and relax, which is also important for teachers. Some students may dislike working with a particular partner. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to group students. Noise levels. You could lose control of the class. Loads of noise. They get very, very noisy. Seating and classroom arrangements. How do you see your students? How effective it is? Is it fast? Do I have the right class for it? Noise, definitely, Sonia. Definitely. I think that's the biggest one for me. For monitoring, it is definitely one of the biggest challenges. Okay. So you're not able to listen to everyone at once and hear what they're saying. So that makes it harder to check that everybody's speaking English. That's what we said before. Now, I'm going to show you something for noise. So spread them as much as possible. Just have groups in different corners of the room. Spread them as much as possible. Then you can set up a signal before you start, like a timeout, like this sort of signal, if you can see me. Or flickering of the lights. I'm just going to do it so you can... No, you cannot see it because I disappear. So when you click the lights, you flicker the lights a couple of times, they know that things are getting far too noisy and you don't have to shout. The thing is not to shout. That's very, very important. So the lights work really well. Yes, groupings, very good. Very well pointed out. We'll talk about grouping students according to ability, different things. Now, non-verbal signs. If you have a projector, you can use bouncy balls or countless counter. I don't know, do you know bouncy balls? Have you ever used it? Have you used bouncy balls? No, yes, no? Have you? No, never? Okay, let me stop sharing this and I'll show you how it works because I find it quite fun if you have a projector. Okay, so give me a second. And I'll be showing it to you in just 1 second. Okay, never heard about it? Oh, you're gonna love it. This is bouncy balls, okay? I can choose different type of balls, okay? I like the eyeballs, but my favorites are the plastic ones, okay? So you activate your microphone. This is sensitive. Can you see it? So that's how it works. It works through your microphone. So when it gets too noisy, it just does this. You can adapt the sensitivity. So put it like at this, depending on your microphone, or you can make it super sensible. I don't know if you like it. I love using this. Okay. This is all in the handout. So don't worry, you'll get the link. No, this is not what I'm sharing. Give me a second. I need to go back to the presentation. This is Ruth and this is me and technology. I'm generally all right. Eh? Great. Oh, good you like it. I absolutely love it. Okay, here I am again. Come on, let's make it bigger. So now I need to do something on my laptop. Just bear with me a second, and then we're ready to continue. Okay. Okay. Here I am. Sorry about that. Okay. Lovely. I'm glad you like it. Yes, the links are on the handout that you will receive, along with all the ideas. And please, if you do have any questions, do not hesitate to contact me at formazione@emilyworld.com. So this is what we have for noise. Confused students. Sometimes they don't know what's expected of them. And this is very important. So for noise, you have that. For this one, I would say bullet point. On board the instructions, always. Bullet points on the board for instructions. And then provide a clear model and control practice for lower levels. If you want them to practice certain language, just make sure you have your handout there with the language. So they are introduced to it, they have a chance to do it in pairs first, use short sentences before they move on to the group work project. But then the instructions, 1, 2, 3, 4, all bullet pointers. Why is this not working? Okay. Okay. Now, for example, set up groups of 3 where student A and B talk. This is basically for classroom management. So for classroom management, sometimes we cannot monitor that they are talking in English, which is something we want them to do. So if you set up groups of 3 where students A and B talk, while students C monitors, and then you keep swapping roles, you can do this with the cards. They are producing language. You just want to make sure that they produce it in English. So C is going to monitor. To make students aware of how much of their mother tongue they're speaking, the monitors, student C that has the cards, will stand up every time they hear a non-English word spoken. So then you have loads of people standing. And when there are a lot of people standing, they know they have to talk in English. So these are ways that they find it fun, and you can deduct points as well on the board, which works really well. So you have a lot of, you have the same group, students standing, then you deduct points, or you don't give them benefits. And then they get into it. It's a sort of game that encourages students to speak English only. So basically, this is you being a facilitator. So you're not constantly saying in English, please, in English, please. You're basically having them do it, which is again student-centered. Okay. Okay. If we want group work to succeed, every student needs to play a part, and every needs a part to play, and every student needs to play their part. So what we want is to give them a job, and they need to do it, okay? Otherwise, just feels horrible. It's just really hard to monitor. So for me, what works? Set a time limit. So in the first part of this project, you have to research information about 5 countries. You have 10 minutes to do this, 5 minutes to do this, and everybody needs to be working. So you monitor that everybody has a job, and then they're all researching. 10 minutes, move on to the next stage. But give them time limits, otherwise it gets out of control. Assign each student a specific task. Again, I'm not a big fan of this because I love it when they decide who's going to be doing what. But sometimes you have weaker students. Someone mentioned earlier, students who, hide behind the better ones. So just go there, see what they're doing. If they've created a list of jobs to do the task, just give them a job. Assign it yourself. Now, you can, this is something that a lot of people do. This could count for final assessment. And this can encourage active involvement in a grade-oriented system. So, okay, this is going to be 2 points, 3 points of your final exam. But then again, in order to do this, you need to assign a specific task to each student so nobody hides. And now, for example, you have different levels in the classroom. It's always a good idea to have filler activities for early finishers. But filler activities could be also a challenge. So my idea is not entirely new, an extension of the work you're doing. So if it's countries, then it would be different cultural habits. Or if it's holidays, different accommodation types. Let's get them to do something that is an extension of what they're doing, or a review of another topic that you've recently covered. Because if the filler activity is too easy, or is non-related, or you have to explain a lot, then they get chatty and they unfocused. Right, pair work, group work, setting. Grouping students. How do we group students effectively? I don't think there is a recipe, the perfect recipe for this. This is the question, isn't it? Do you want them to get the work done? And you want to make them fair so that you avoid unequal participation. There are different ways of doing this. I think it depends on the group you have. If it's the same class you're teaching, if you know your students. But this is rule number 1 for me. If they are your students, group your students at the planning stage. Just make your groups beforehand. Groups should be no more than 5. I would say 4 is great because then you can swap. Mixed ability groups, it depends. I think there are reasons for that. There are reasons for and against. Let's explore them. But yes, I agree. Mixed ability works really well. I'm a big fan of mixed ability groups. 4 or 5 tops, because then you can swap and you can integrate an activity that is pair work in the middle of the group work to activate more vocabulary, for example, to give them something they can use at the end. Tell them. I would say, because sometimes they believe that it's better to talk to the teacher, and then when they're talking together, they think, hey, we're not doing anything. Our teacher is just relaxing here. Tell them your rationale. I am using group work because I want you to develop your speaking skills, your communication skills. I want you to listen to each other. I want you to be able to communicate to people with different levels. That's why I'm using it. This is the objective of the activity. You're going to learn to listen to each other. You're going to learn to respond to each other. You're going to learn to take turns. You're going to learn to interrupt politely. You're going to learn to work as a team. And that's why we're doing this. Yes, if they want to choose, they have to show they can manage their chance. Absolutely. This is the other thing, grouping students. Have students form groups. So Antonella, Massimo, Andrea, and Lucia will be working together. Tell them that before you give them specific instructions. And I, in pairs, avoid students who do not get on well. Grouping students. I'll get back to that student chosen groups, teacher assigned groups. You can put them according to skills or interests. So you can run a survey first. And then, they're interested in sports. So they're going to do the project on sports. All the students who are interested in music, they're going to be doing the project on music, series, any common interests they share. Because it's communicative at the end of the day. And these can work depending on your aims. Now, you may wish to mix strong and weaker students, or to put all the strong students together for a specific task. It depends. Maybe you want to put all the weaker students in one group and then facilitate more there, monitor, give them that extra attention you want to give them. And then the stronger students together so that they can work independently and challenge them a little bit more, give them filler activities. Or you may want to mix them. If you want to, either way, if you select the group by ability, they will know. Okay, students are very smart. And they know if it's mixed ability, and they know if you've grouped them because they're weak, or if you've grouped them because they're strong. So just tell them why. I think they will be much happier to work together if you say, okay, we know that this group, is more confident, so let's, put them together to work together. And then you may want to work together so I can help you a little bit more to become a little bit more confident, because they know where they're at. So they know they're going to get extra help from the teacher. And if it's mixed ability, tell them as well. Look, you're going to have to interact with each other and use the skills you have. Discover new skills you may have. Thank you, Sylvia. I think it depends on the class dynamics. Again, there's no perfect recipe for this. Random groups. I love random groups. Depends on the activity, but I think it encourages students to interact at different levels. It encourages students to interact with people that, they haven't met before. And I'll show you something in the handout. I'll show you in a minute. Here, this is something I use. I don't know if you know it is in a handout. And is a puzzle. So I give 4 people different parts of the puzzle. So I distribute them among the class and then have to put the puzzle together, and that's the group. So, you've got the link to download the puzzles. I think it's a nice way to do random grouping because it's very original, and it activates their thinking. They will have to think, so this is 64, this is 64, this is 64, and they have to find each other. So again, in a handout, you'll find the link and you can download loads of different ones. So student chosen groups. Students are generally more motivated. They're really interested in the assignment when they're grouped with the people they want to work with. That is a fact, but it is true that we cannot let them fossilize into fixed friends groups. It's just going to be very, very bad for the classroom dynamics, and especially for those students who don't have as many friends. So I don't really let them choose themselves very often. I think it's a good idea sometimes here and there as a gift, but I prefer to assign the groups myself so as to avoid this issue. Okay, thank you, Roberta. No problem. Everything in the handout. So now, okay, arranging classrooms and planning group change. Groups, for me, they need to change. They cannot stick together all the time because that means less talking time. So designate time for setting up the classroom or ask students to help you. First 5 minutes, create the islands. Islands work really well. Like, these islands are 4, they can work as individuals, they can work as pairs, they can work as a group. So dedicate a couple of minutes to do that, but fast and easy. get the students, have your map, draw this. This is what I draw before my class. And it becomes more, it becomes easier with time. But this is my work. Then, as a teacher, you know what to do once you're there. But this is a tricky part, isn't it? So islands for me, great. And I actually write their names, so I know who's going to be paired with whom. Okay, so I've got Ruth with me, Josh, Becky and Kathy, the academic team. We're going to be working together today. Now, give me a second. Now, tell your students that they will all have to present the outcome of the activity. This is something I do very regularly. I don't want them to divide the work for their presentations. I want them to present it, okay? And this is how I do it. And they keep asking, it's like, you will see at the end. So they will all have to present it. So for instance, if they have developed a new gadget that will make our lives easier, for example, they will have to explain the features, show how it works, and how it will be useful, but they will all have to do all of it. They don't divide the presentation. So then they get more student talking time again. And then they have to engage, they have to work because they will have to present it later. So this is how they become less disruptive. They speak English because they will have to use it later. Now, once they are ready to present it, assign a letter to each person. So I'll go like A, B, 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 B. So I've got it like this, okay? You can draw it as well. Now to check it, ICQs work really well. So who is A? And all the students raise their hand. Who is B? Raise a hand. C, D. And this is when I tell them, A's to that corner, B's that corner, C's that other corner. So then all A's will be sitting together, all B's will be sitting together, all C's together, all D's together, which means one person from each group will go and work with one person from each group. Now, this is a little bit mathematical, so I honestly recommend doing this in your planning stage. Yeah, lack of space in a classroom for sure. So then you give them a time limit and they start, sorry, student 1, you cannot do A's here. You give them 3 minutes to do the presentation and then 1 minute for the others to ask questions. I can tell you they will listen to each other very carefully because they've all been working on pretty much the same thing. So they want to know what the others have done. And if you give them 3 minutes, they'll do it fast and efficiently. So that's 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes. 3 times 4, 12 minutes, plus the minute. Then you give them 15 minutes for a whole feedback in groups. This works really well because then they will have to explain everything again. Repetition makes perfect. We're giving them an extra opportunity to actually practice the language. I don't know if you have any questions at this stage. I know this is quite complicated, but once you get the hang of it, it's really cool. Right, so I don't know why this has gone crazy, but let's do it. As a teacher, what is the role of the teacher? We're not just lazy people there waiting for students to do the work. No, we're not lazy, we're patient. But because our job is plan, 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 we do everything at the planning stage. Hi, Maria. You've raised your hand. Can you type a question in the chat, please? So clear stages, time limits, instructions, draw it and make it faster. Clear instructions on the board. I did mention this before to avoid confusion. Sometimes I write them in red and then I rewrite them in green when we're at that stage. So then the instruction in green means we are doing that particular stage. So now we're on the research stage. Now we're on the writing stage. Now we're on the negotiation stage. So I write them in green. So it's like red, green, green, green. It turns green. Set ground rules for group interaction. You can model how you want your students to participate. You can actually say, look, this is an okay way of interacting, and you exemplify it, you model it. This is a non-okay way to interact. In Italian, no. Are we reading things to each other? No, we're talking. So you can actually model it. It works. Tell them that you're going to be facilitating, that you're not going to be there telling them the answers. You're a facilitator. You're there to help. So they can call you for help and you'll be able to say yes or no depending on their request. Do not hover. I mean, I sometimes do that, which is like I go on top of them and just not let them, work. I just monitor. So I generally turn my chair now, sit down, turn my chair and just take notes of the language they're producing. But they're not looking at me. They're not talking to me. They're talking to each other. I do at some stages. How's it going here? Okay, this is really cool. Maybe you need a little bit more work on this stage. So I do give them feedback. They appreciate that. And I am very slow at sharing what I know because I know the answers. I always tell them this. I know the answers. I'm the teacher. But it's for you to discover them. So, let's try. I'll give you a hint. I'll ask you a question. I'll point you into the right direction, but I'm not giving you the answers. And then the closure. I think closure is very important and it's full class interaction. Everybody can reflect, even on the group work process. Did you enjoy working as a group? Was it effective? Did anybody relax more than necessary? So they can actually assess their own performance, which is something that we want them to do. And then they can tell you what they have learned. And you can ask them questions to discover what they have learned. So that is finishing with that belief that the teacher, talking to the teacher is always better. Now, in conclusion, we maximize students' talking time and practice time. When using pair or group work, we plan thoroughly, but take a step back during the class to monitor students. They do most of the work during the lesson. I'm a teacher trainer. I train teachers for their CELTA and Trinity Diesel courses. And that's what I generally train the most, is relax. They are producing the language. You are planning. Now you're there. But don't feel that it's all your responsibility. Students take ownership of their own learning process. That's the most important thing. They will behave better and they will be more likely to remember the language. No problem, Monica. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for attending. I know I'm running late. And it's generally 45 minutes. I always take longer. And we train students to enhance their teamwork skills and peer and self-correction techniques, which again is really good for them to know, what they don't know, what they need to work on, and take ownership of their learning process. Getting feedback and share thoughts, what has been done. Definitely, Sylvia, I absolutely agree. That feedback is crucial. Now, any suggestions, ideas for other webinars? I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat. I hope it has been useful and we have been able to help you a little to learn different ways of monitoring group work and how it could be beneficial for students and for teachers. Please type them in the chat. Now, thanks everybody. It's been great to see you here. Next week, we do not have a training session because, thank you everybody. We don't have a training session next week because we have the MLA annual convention. Some of you will be there. I hope to see you there. But otherwise, just be patient with us. The next session will be on Thursday, November 16th, and it will be methodology. Catherine Mason, my colleague, will be doing it on student-centeredness and community language learning, which is very interesting. Now, you will receive a certificate of participation and a handout. If you do not, please email us at formazione@mlaworld.com. If you do have any questions for me whatsoever, please do send them. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. And again, thank you all very much for attending the session. It's been fantastic. I'll say hi to Josh. Thank you, Sylvia. We love working together. Probably in the next sessions, we'll be doing it together. The email for the handout, Cinzia, is formazione@mlaworld.com. But because you signed up, you enrolled in the webinar, you will probably get it automatically next week. Okay? So don't worry about it. If you do not receive it, that's when we actually expect an email from you, okay? Thank you so much, and I'll see you very soon. I hope you have a nice evening. Bye-bye.